So welcome everybody to another meeting of the Rotary Club of Livermore. Glad to have you all here today. And so Tim Berry, would you be willing to unmute yourself and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? And if everybody else will keep themselves on mute. Tim.
I'd love to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Tim. So up next, Michael, do you have an introduction for our song today?
You know, we struggle every week trying to figure this out, and I want to just throw out an invitation to everybody if they'd like to help do this in terms of rewriting words that are appropriate for today's speaker, or not today's, but future speakers. That I welcome that, or we welcome that. So last night we figured out that maybe it was in the middle of the night, I don't know. We have the maintenance gentleman talking about Livermore maintenance streets. So we figured we'd do, what did we do? On the road again. That's what it is. It's on the road again. Should have been fix the road again.
Wow.
Well, thank you very much, Michael and Stu. Another great song. You guys are making all of our meetings this year with all of your work there. So thank you very much. Linda Tinney was scheduled to do the thought for the day, but I got a phone call from Linda just a couple minutes ago, and her Zoom meeting crashed. Her Zoom crashed. So she couldn't get back on. I don't know, Glenn or Jeff, do you see, was Linda able to come back on? She was here earlier, and then her computer, everything crashed for her.
No, I do not see her, but I'll keep looking.
Okay, so we may come back to Linda's thought for the day. So we will go ahead and move on. And if you just let me know if she comes. So our meeting front line, Jeff is our Zoom host as usual. Pat Coyle is today's Spur reporter. Don Wentz is playing double duty. He did the AVs for today while Alan is traveling, and he will be publishing the Spur. And David is monitoring the Zoom chat. So thank you all for your help and support of today's meeting. And so do we have any visiting Rotarians today? I did not see any on the participant list or ahead of time. Just if anybody has a visiting Rotarian or is a visiting Rotarian, now's your opportunity to speak up. And I know Loretta Caskey, you have a couple guests. If you could introduce your guests.
I am happy to introduce my husband and torchbearer for the last factory, Jeff Caskey. And I also have Will Bolton here today, who is retired from Sandia National Lab and is the current president of the Livermore Heritage Guild.
All right, so welcome, Jeff and Will. Nice to have you with us. If you want to just take yourselves off mute and say a hello.
I've nattered with this group many a time, and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I'm also glad to join. I'm anxious to hear the subject, very interested in the subject of the talk, so I'm interested in hearing that, and good to see some friendly faces.
All right, thank you very much, Will. Nice to have you here with both of us. Nice to have both of you here with us today. So a couple photos from my walkabout, and this is actually newer photos. These were just taken recently, just last week, actually. So since we're going to hear about Carnegie Park projects, just to ground us, we can see a photo of the sign from Carnegie Park. And remember, that's where the Rotary Bandstand is. So that's a photo that I snapped or had Chris snap for me last week on the bandstand. And so up next, I'd like to invite Pat McMiniman to do some additional Paul Harris Fellow recognitions. Pat.
Great. Thank you, President Carolyn. Fellow Rotarians and guests, today we recognize Dr. Norman Bregman for his generous giving to the Rotary Foundation of Rotary International since he first became a Paul Harris Fellow just about a year ago today in June 2020. We congratulate Norman Bregman for his substantial giving to the Rotary Foundation this Rotary year and for achieving Paul Harris Fellow +3 in just a year's time. We also invite Norm to say a few words about why he is inspired to give to the Rotary Foundation. So Norm, if you're there,
I am.
I'll pass the torch to you.
Well, thank you. Let me put context. What I've learned is that Rotarians seek to make a difference. How? By sharing talents, expertise, skills, time, and giving. We play a key role in giving to the community and the lives of the community. But how are we different? Well, that's led off by the 7 areas of focus. And when you put that together with our global impact, that almost says it all about how unique we are. But I really got a finer appreciation when Kathy nudged me to join the District Leadership Academy. That was a very enlightening experience. It expanded my perspective and understanding of the really great impact that the RI Foundation has. Anybody who's interested, I really encourage you to go look on the Rotary International page, the web page, and get into the Learning Center and really get to see what the foundation contributes across the world and its global impact. So that really I'd taken that to heart. I'm also fortunate, I guess, to have had a job that wasn't a job, it was enjoyment, where gave me the resources that I have now to give back for all the opportunities I've had. And I don't know of a better way to give back than what I'm doing. Well, there are some other ways, and I'll throw that out and pitch it in a moment also. But we have been provided with, as Rotarians, a great opportunity to provide service, to help in projects, educating youth, fellowship, and that takes resources. However, now I've got to flip a little. Now that I've really done my pitch for Rotary International Foundation, I think what Carolyn has set as a goal, President Carolyn, is laudable. It ought to be every Rotarian every year. I think for most of us, we have the resources that, well, I believe in my head, we all have the resources to give every year. Now, we have different abilities in that giving, but there's no doubt resources are there. I learned that when I wasn't a faculty member, but when I was an administrator, there's always money. It's what your priorities are. You know, it's putting your money where your mouth is. And that's laudable. And I'm also biased now when I said other venues. I'm now part of the Livermore Foundation. And I know the great things that we do locally. So I encourage everyone to give. And my statement is, don't give till it hurts, give till it feels good. Our impact is just terrific. And I thank you for giving me a couple of minutes to elucidate on my thoughts.
Well, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much, Norm. And I will say thank you very much for your continued contributions this year as a Paul Harris Fellow, and for jumping in with both feet to the deep end as a member of the Rotary Club of Livermore and Rotary International. So back to you, Pat. One more recognition.
Great, thank you, President Carolyn. So today we also recognize Jeff Youngsma, who has also given generously to the Rotary Foundation this year. Jeff first became a Paul Harris Fellow in July 2020 and is receiving his Paul Harris Fellow +3 recognition pin today. And we've also invited Jeff to say a few words about why he is inspired to give to the Rotary Foundation. So Jeff, we'll pass it off to you.
Well, I'm going to have to learn to never follow Norm if these things come with that again. So what he has to say is way more eloquent and more thoughtful than anything that I've had. I've had somewhat of a fortunate life in that I've never needed or wanted for much. However, I think my focus on giving kind of came when I met, well, who is now my spouse, who, you know, had to live on charity at some point in time, just because of charities and foundations and all of that. She was able to, you know, get and finish college, and then, you know, agreed to always pay it forward, or at least try to pay it back. Some of my closest friends have been founders of foundations, such as the Davis Street Honor Flight and Sunflower Hill. And we, you know, and those things exist by charities such as ours, as Rotary, to do that. I know that I had to, especially when I got done with the fire service, which was so fortunate in its giving, was to, I think the easiest thing for me is to think about how do I pay it forward? How do I, if I can't inspire people to follow, at least start to lead by example. I know that my money wasn't going to go very far in trying to donate, but I know that putting it in an international organization that supports our local goals, our regional goals, and our global issues, and that can combine that and be such of service, which, by the way, all my friends who did foundations were part of Rotary. I just felt that was the right stewardship for me to try to participate in. It allows me to feel as if I'm doing something that I might be able to leave this world a little bit better than when I found it. My cliches are going to be a little bit different than Norm's, in that when I was in the Navy, one thing that always got chanted at us during BUDS was, you know, anything worth doing is worth overdoing. Moderation is for wimps. So I kind of look at that. Edmund Burke, who's one of my heroes to follow, I've always kind of liked nobody made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because they could only do a little. And as I look at this, I just realized that, you know, just by the little that I'm fortunate enough to be able to contribute, some great things are being done in this world. So I am done rambling. I will leave you with this last thought: is the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. And mic drop.
Well, our thanks to both you, Jeff, and to Norm for your inspirational words. And before I sign off here, I would also like to encourage members who have not yet donated $25 or more to the Rotary Foundation's annual fund to do so we can meet our Every Rotarian Every Year goal this year. So back to you, Carolyn, and hopefully we can achieve our Every Rotarian Every Year goal. I think we'll do it.
All right, thank you very much, Pat, and thank you also, Jeff, for also jumping into the deep end of Rotary with both feet. Jeff also participated in the District 5170 Leadership Academy, and will be joining Norm along with Lynn Sepla as a board member for the Rotarian Foundation of Livermore. So thank you very much for all your contributions for both of you. So hopefully everybody reads those emails that David Round sends out every week for our meetings, and then also with other updates. So thank you to the 74 club members who participated in our club survey about hybrid meetings. So you can go back and look for, if you didn't see that email or the whole survey, you can see the results there. But just to give you a few highlights, 50% of those responding said that they would attend a hybrid meeting or they would, meaning whether we're on Zoom and people in person most of the time. 42% said they would attend sometime in person, which means sometimes online, and 8% said mostly via Zoom. So hybrid meetings will be here to stay in some format. Exactly how is TBD. 60% of the people said that they feel safe to attend again in person. We have logistical challenges to overcome with that. Number one being a location to meet in. As we said before, that we will not be going back to the hotels. So we're looking at moving forward with a new location to meet in when we can meet in person, and will most likely be the Robert Livermore Community Center. Yet 23% didn't feel safe to returning to in-person meetings soon. And then we had people mixed results about whether we would be serving lunch. So we will have those. I encourage you to look at the full survey results. And there, if you recall, for those of you who completed the survey, there was an opportunity to add some comments. So you can see the comments there as well. A number of the comments focused on really wanting to gather with fellow Rotarians who were 100% vaccinated, or as I say, vaccinated and marinated. So, you know, that's 2 vaccines with your 2 weeks after your second one. So we'll keep you up to date on where we're moving forward with getting back in person. And in the next week or so, you'll hear about an opportunity for those who are comfortable to join us in person for our demotion party at the end of June. So, as I mentioned before, the rodeo parade is going virtual this year. You will recall that we canceled the parade last year, and the 2021 parade will be virtual this year. And so recall that the Livermore Rodeo is billed as the world's fastest rodeo. So this will probably be the world's fastest rodeo parade this year. But we've invited past participants to submit entries, and a number of them have. And this will be shown live, same time, same date. So second Saturday in June, which is June 12th this year at 10 a.m. But instead of on 2nd Street, it will be streamed over the web from our YouTube channel. So you'll access that from the club website. So just to let you know that that's coming. And one of the entries will be the next slide, Dawn. So I had a wonderful opportunity to meet with Ed Coates. And as Don Wentz says, this is the presidential limo. For those of you who remember seeing Don's car in the parade, and Don and I had a chance to actually drive in circles around Carnegie Park a few times last week, and we'll have a little video clip from there. So those are the kind of entries, as well as some other creative ones. We'll hear from city council members and a couple other, the Asbury Church Grill team is back with a very creative entry. So hopefully everybody also received in their email box and didn't delete it, the Rotary Foundation News Today, which is the newsletter that comes from District 5170. And we were highlighted, our club, we have lots of our club members who serve in leadership positions within the district. Pat McMiniman being the chair of the major donor committee. He had a nice article in there which highlighted what our local Rotarian Foundation giving was this year. And then Pat Coyle shared information with our fellow Rotarians about our Area 4 global grant that we did in support of, in response to COVID-19 locally, And that's also part of where a lot of our club members have been delivering home blood pressure monitor kits to Access Community Health as part of that global grant. So make sure to look for that in your inbox as well. So up next week will be speakers talking about the Rotary and Peace Corps partnership. So Carrie Carmichael and Cal Mann with an introduction from Ken Perrine. And is that correct that the introduction's from Ken, or will it be Keith Beck?
I've been waiting to hear a positive affirmation back from Keith.
Okay, all right. So we'll find out, or it will be Ken.
Yeah.
So make sure that you join us next week for that and hear an update about that important partnership. So that's one of the things that Rotary is really good at, and it's working with partners to make an even greater impact around the world. And this week, our speaker will be introduced by our own Mark Roberts, who also has another very heavy hat he wears as the city manager. So Mark.
Thank you, Carolyn. Today I want to introduce our speaker. That's Jeff Schaefer, and Jeff has been with the city now for 18 years. So that's a long time, and he's done a bunch of things for us. He is our maintenance and golf operations manager. Maintenance is part of the Public Works Department, and Jeff oversees 45 staff in a variety of sections, including landscape, facilities, streets, signs, fleet, and golf. And I just wanted to give just a little bit of an idea of the kinds of things that he has done during his time with us. This is a very shortened list because the long list actually would take up the entire time for his presentation. But taking the lead on our asset management fleet vehicle replacement programs, our annual street median landscape renovation projects, our street sign replacement programs, facility and street light conversions to LEDs, you may know him from our annual community service day programs, which in 2019 had over 1,000 volunteers spread over 30 organizations. And just think about that for just a minute. 1,000 people came out and spent a big chunk of a day because Jeff made it sound like so much fun to plant plants and pull weeds and shovel essentially top coating and all sorts of other things that we had that sort of participation. He works with our beautification committee on our annual Arbor Day and beautification awards, and of course coordinated with us on the 2016 Carnegie Park gazebo project. So that's just what he's been doing in the past 18 years. Before he came to us, he had a 30-year career, do the math there, on construction management, design assistance, and maintaining golf course facilities. 2 of them here in the Bay Area and 1 right here at Winty Vineyards. He was essentially the dude in charge of that facility. So very cool there. He's a past president of the Northern California Golf Course Superintendents Association and a former board of director for the California State Golf Course Superintendents Association. So Jeff knows just a boatload about all things golf and maintenance related. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff to talk to us today.
Muted here. Sorry about that. Can everybody hear me?
That's way better.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. I must say first, I never enjoyed the mute button more than the singing, or maybe you guys enjoyed it that I could mute myself for the singing. So I must say that was a good thing. Mark, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I want to thank you guys all as a club. Just again, I know Mark is here and as well as Scott Lamphere and stuff, but what the Rotary has done for the city has been amazing, especially during my time here, and I really appreciate it. I also want to thank Ken for inviting me, and I see so many other people that I consider friends like Jeff and Loretta and many of you, and so it's nice to see you even through this, and hopefully in the near future we can all get together. Um, I've said this before at the Rotary when I've spoken. You know, if you guys wonder, and boy, Norm and Jeff, you touched a little on this. You wonder if you make a difference. I just want you to know, because of you. In 1977, I was a junior Rotarian in Ludington, Michigan. They selected me my senior year to go to a week-long thing, and I remember it was about community service and giving and doing all that. And every time I get with the Rotary, I always think, boy, what impact that made on me in my life of making choices, both professionally and personally. So I just want you to know the things you guys do, it does make a difference. And and I know, speaking for myself, I don't think I would have done all the things I did and molded it without some of the impressions that the Rotary Club chose me to do that. So again, I just wanted to say thanks for that. I'm going to share my screen with you now, or hopefully I can share my screen here. And hopefully you can all see that. Somebody maybe give me a thumbs up there. So this, again, I was invited by Ken to talk a little bit about what we call the southeast quadrant of the military area of Carnegie Park. And that is the area where the flagpole currently sits. And there are several plaques and things about the different wars that we have had and stuff like that. And that's a future thing. But I think it's important to give you a little bit of background before we get there. So there was a master plan done, approved by the city council back in 2013. It was actually the same evening that this Rotary Club, or the city on behalf of the Rotary, and that's what started the approval of getting the gazebo built. And so that master plan is really a guiding document by the city council that we use when we do things at Carnegie Park. This is an overview. I think you can see my cursor. Here's the gazebo area. This is where the military area is. We call this quadrant here. I'll be talking shortly about this northwest quadrant and what we're hoping to do. I'm working with Dennis Gams and others on this one, as well as several of you. So hopefully that'll be this year. And then this is a future one for what we consider the library area. Sorry about that. The background, again, it's a historic library. It's owned by the city. It operates the park area. The Livermore Rec actually maintains and operates the building part of it. It was built in 1911, and the important part is it was listed as a National Register in 2011. So as we develop, hopefully with you, as we develop plans for future things, we do need to realize certain areas are part of the National Registry. So some of the things in the master plan, and I just quickly, provide secure environment, upgrade it, preserve the park's history. That's important. I think even Jeff mentioned Caskey, one of the reasons he was attending. So I know that his involvement, the park's aesthetics, use of the park, constrained city costs. Let's build something that we can actually maintain over a long time. You, us, the residents of Livermore, and then identify city and non-revenues sources, such as yourself, that may be able to help us to do those. One of the things that I wanted to show you is in any design that we do, the symmetry of those pathways are part of the National Registry. We can't change those. We can change the materials and we can change things, but we need to remember that. And if you recall, when we did the gazebo, that was there, and this is being planned for the rest of the activities. This is the one we'll be talking about in a moment, the military one area, what I call military quadrant. And again, that's just something important, as well as other things. This was your gazebo project. Thank you so much. That's been tremendous use. It's done very well. You can see this symmetry pathway that we talked about. It was done in decomposed granite. The Rotary right now, we're working with the Rotary Club and the foundation to see if we can get support for them to put in these bands of concrete and other things. So that's that one. This is the next quadrant that we're hoping to do, and I'll give you a timeline here in a moment. But this is the northwest quadrant, and this, we want to redo this. You can see the gazebo in the background. This will have picnic tables and other things, and I'll show you that right here. So here's kind of a little design. Hopefully you can see this. Here's your gazebo that you guys so graciously did so much work on to get built. This is the new area that we hope to do this year. There'll be a little bit of lawn area. There'll be picnic tables. There'll be seating on these tree areas. This will all get. The purpose of this is beyond having it as a social gathering, birthdays and things, is to support your gazebo activities. I say yours, the community's gazebo activities. So as we spill out, we can spill over to here, and this can support those if there's a jazz festival or something's going on. So you can see that is this one, and I have been working with the Rotary. We are hoping to, and if the council approves the current budget, we're hoping to get the site purchases done by the end of this year, or this budget cycle. And then we're going to remove some of the diseased trees that are really bad. We'll have some community things. We're hoping to begin construction September 7th and have that first volunteer work day that Saturday, September 11th, or that around that period. And I realize that's veterans or near some other dates. But and again, we'll be looking for the Rotary to help take a lead. There are current Rotary members. You guys may know them, and I believe they're both from the morning and the noon clubs that we would hope to get going. And so this is when we're hoping to have that one completed by the end of this year. So now we've got that one completed, and I'm only putting these in with the consistency of what kind of trees, what kind of materials. This is actually pictures from your bandstand from the gazebo one. So now let's talk a little bit about the military area. So this would be the next one that the city would like to go to. Currently, there's this small area, it has this seating, and the idea is to take this quadrant and recreate it into something. We've called it military because this is already there, and it seems like it's important to continue that theme. So what I'm looking for as I talk about this presentation is, one, the Rotary support from both the volunteerism, hopefully from a funding. Obviously, I think if we reached out to community, there's many even outside of Rotary that would probably help redo this into an area and assist with the design. Before we do that, though, I do think before we do the design, we need to recognize what's already at Veterans Hall. And so there's obviously this plaque, there's a brick program that you can see in the center of this one. And there is some things. So I would, while we can always discuss, should we have another brick program over there, or does that take away from the still many bricks that aren't purchased over here? So something we should just at least recognize and be thinking about. We see this as a joint effort. Obviously, there's city staff involved. The beautification committee has a subcommittee that's also working on this. There's a historical review, which the historical committee needs to be part of, because you can't change this. We have them and have them review it. Obviously, the Rotary Club, you guys have been so instrumental in both of the other quadrants that we sure hope that you continue that. And then obviously we need to reach out to some related military organizations as to what should we design in there, what should we have. And then obviously there would be a city council a component of a review. I think some of the key points, remember, is that we need to retain the historical aspect of the park. And that's what the master plan is all about. It's to guide us as a community so that we don't start putting something in there that is so different than what the park's intent was and all of that. The second one is very important to the Historical Society as a committee, and also to just the National Registry. We shouldn't do fake history as part of it. Sometimes someone can look at an area out there, and I will give you an example. Some thought that the little boulders that were placed around there were part of the design back in 1911. They were not. And so if you start to use those and say that's the history, you're actually kind of not, you're doing fall history there of what really the park is. So we need to make sure that we don't do that. I think the existing military area was done for a purpose. If you go out there, clearly the plaques were done in different years. So how does that still retain with what we're thinking of doing? I have always used the word reflective area or a place to go and sit. Is this quadrant kind of a passive area that people go and can kind of sit and think about things? My father was in the military. My grandfathers were in war. My brother's in the military. So is that what this should be? And then should we have a component as we design this? Does it have something with history and education? And I'm careful to present this because I want to make sure people know that I think because this is a Carnegie library, if we do present history, it shouldn't be with the idea that creates any conflict or confusion amongst people and stuff. I think we need to think about that. And this is where the beautification committee is coming in, because we have somebody on the committee who actually was a former librarian. And we want to see what was there in Carnegie, Mr. Carnegie's past. Why did he choose this as an area? And then why was this chosen later on as a military kind of area? So, do we have those types of things? And then, of course, as we move forward, other ideas that this group, and we can talk about this in a moment, what this group feels, just initially about what we're talking about and giving us some, us, the city, some initial thoughts on it. So that's really what I came to talk to you about. Ken thought this was a great tie because of Memorial Day and all that's happening with that. And so I appreciate it, Ken, for inviting me. And what I was hoping is maybe spending a few moments of your time and maybe hearing, I don't know if this is led by Carolyn or Ken, but what is it that you initially, as you think of this area, what might be important or thoughts on it? So I'll kind of open it up for the group.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you for providing that update. So I will look first to see if there's anybody who has a hand up using the reactions as the sponsors, or is there anybody on the screen who has a question or some feedback? Marty.
Can you reflect on John Shirley's military history in this area?
Wow. Great comment.
Thank you, Marty. Anybody else that wants to raise a hand or ask a question?
Did he answer?
Jeff?
Did he answer?
Oh, I'm sorry. Great comment, Marty. And I think that's a excellent topic to talk about. I think we all know what former Mayor Shirley's not only meant to Livermore, but militarily wise. So I think that I wrote that down. I definitely think that's a conversation that we had.
All right. Does anybody else have Jeff Caskey?
Yeah, Chris, we have the museum there in the Carnegie building. So we do see visitors come to the military quadrant. And certainly some people just use it as a place to sit, but it is used as a place for reflective sort of sitting, and that people peruse the monuments. And so it is a spot that people enjoy. And so I certainly hope that we, and it sounds like Jeff's plan is to keep at least some aspect of that. And we're looking forward to that. Certainly it's used that way now and people appreciate it.
Okay, and I appreciate that, Jeff. This is Jeff again. And one of the things, Jeff, is maybe we can get together as part of, if there are things in the museum that are popular or things that we know, what component can also be talked about.Maybe there's a kiosk or something that actually draws people into the museum also.
Absolutely. Of course, the flagpole there is, as many people here know, the top of the original downtown flagpole, and we have a bit of a display of that inside. But anyway, we can talk about the details, but thank you very much, and really appreciate your presentation too.
All right, Kathy Coyle.
Yes, thank you, Carolyn, and thank you very much, Jeff, for this. I think you've clearly you're taking a very thoughtful approach to what goes into this and what's history and what isn't. And one of the things that has come to my mind as an observation is that perhaps some of the benches could face inward towards the monuments. And that's about it, because right now everybody faces away from them. So maybe something that's facing inward would be a thought.
Excellent comment. And I think even in the master plan, it talks about that. So, so that is a great comment. And I think that you're echoing what others have said. So I really appreciate that.
All right, TJ, I see your hand waving, your physical hand, not your just little Zoom hand.
So, you know, some of the great military monuments of modern times have been the Vietnam Memorial in Washington. And I think even the new, was a World War I monument, named people who had served. And I will never forget the Veterans Day when this Rotarian from the lab, he was a PhD chemist, tall man, very dignified, quiet person, very intellectual. And then he stood up on Veterans Day when they were to say what was their service and time. He said, U.S. Marines, the Pacific, 1942 to 1945. And I'll tell you, a switch turned in my mind about that person. I had never.
You're muted.
TJ, did you mean to mute yourself there?
Oh, there you go.
I'm sorry. What you could do is do a brick thing where people bought bricks and didn't put their own name on it, but put the name of veterans who have served. And so that could become sort of our military wall. And it wouldn't necessarily be people who are still around, but even people whom we remember. And of course, John Shirley comes to the top of my mind, but there are many, many people. And I think that would really direct it toward the military and be a monument that people would stand and read.
Okay, up next, we'll go with Kathy Streeter and then Niall. So Kathy, you're still on mute.
Okay. I would really like to see Carnegie Park become more of an activity center and more of a part of Livermore. And it has occurred to a number of people, not just me, but a number of people, that if you stand on First Street at a certain spot and look toward Carnegie, there are a number of buildings, it's only a block in between. There are a number of buildings that are either being evacuated or will be because they're not needed any longer. If there were a wide park pathway from downtown to Carnegie, it could become a much bigger part of our community. And I'm just throwing that out there for people to think about. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. This is Jeff again. Thank you for that comment. I do know the city is working hard, though, as you all know, it takes time to think about the downtown footprint is not just First Street, and to include Second Street all the way to Carnegie. So I appreciate that. Again, others have echoed that type of a sentiment. And I think, so I've jotted what you've said down. And secondly, I do think that's something that should be considered.
All right, so we'll go with Niall and then Brian and Hank. So Niall.
Yeah, looking at this military quadrant and military, there must be a lot of soldiers from Livermore that have participated in wars. And we could focus on those people with a list of those people from Livermore that served. And the other thing is, what about something like how about a screen, a digital screen that told the story?
All right, Jeff's writing down all of those. So while he's writing down your suggestions, Niall, I will jump to Brian Mayle. Brian.
Jeff, thanks for filling us in on this, and I appreciate your comments and everyone else's comments. My comments are going to be off the board, I'm sorry. I was thinking when I'm sitting and reflecting in the park, and applies to all parks, part of my thoughts as I've become older is, where is the nearest public toilet? And are there any provisions for public toilets associated with this project or with any of our parks? I find this very disturbing, naturally.
Okay, thank you for that, Brian. I've written that down because we do have 4 quadrants to work with. There are obviously some associated things with having public toilets open and that, but one of these quadrants, if it was deemed that this is doable, we can definitely take a look at that. I know the facility itself, and Jeff and can speak, Jeff Caskey can speak more to this. Obviously, the current facility has some items that would need to be upgraded. But I think the idea of, and what you have, I'll definitely put that on the list as we move forward.
All right. And so now Hank, and then Mark Roberts and Joel. Hank.
I've seen a number of such parks, on the East Coast, and their memorials would include names that went back to wars of the 1600s and 1700s. And I would think that if you could possibly poll the military and find out what names they would have you put on here easily back to the beginning of the, or at least the somewhere in the 1800s. And many of those names would not be in the memory of current residents.
Okay, thank you for that.
All right, Mark.
As was mentioned earlier, there is a very interesting symmetry here between this part of Carnegie and then essentially looking across a series of parking lots for the bank and for the chamber, and then the passageway from First Street back behind First Street. So you can essentially get in a spot where you can you have the ability to sort of look all the way from here all the way to Stockman's Park that has, of course, the military statue in there. And so I think there's an interesting tie between sort of what we do in this area and then referencing other monuments and places in the downtown as well that are part of the military heritage here. So I think we have some neat opportunities to more closely tie the Carnegie Park area into the broader downtown and to tie it into some of the monuments that we've already placed.
All right.
This is Jeff, and I will say, Mark, that is an excellent comment, because I think what I might be thinking, or maybe exactly what we could definitely in this area, because it's a library of education, definitely we should have something that says, if you're interested in other areas, go to. Is that, I see kind of a head nodding.
Yeah, essentially it seems like we've got a couple of things right in the downtown that tie right back to our military, and even a super simple walking map. Over the longer term, we want to make that connection stronger as those properties redevelop. But even in the current time, most of that space in between Carnegie and Stockman's Park are parking lots. They're open to the public to walk through.
All right, and then Joel, you had your hand up.
Yes, a couple of things there. Livermore's been around since the late 1860s, so I guess the first major war would have been the Spanish-American War. So harking back to Hank's comments about finding out who from this area or this town served in some of the wars from then until now would be interesting, maybe included in a memorial. Also, women served during World War II and Vietnam and so forth. Maybe there could be, a small women's memorial, or even one also for people who served the country without being in the military, diplomatic corps, Peace Corps, things like that. Other things that could be included in this park. And that's all.
Joel, thank you for that. That is actually excellent information, which then makes me think of a quick thing. And we don't have to do it at this meeting, but who might, and again, Mark may be able to give you this answer. Who out there in the community, what organizations would we contact to be part of this? Is it the VFW? Is it the Rotary? What other organizations would we think about reaching out to?
I'll need some help with that one.
Yeah.
The stockmen have various activities in which they bring veterans here to enjoy some of the ranches. So the stockmen.
Okay. Is there a time, I'm going to say to the group, as maybe to Mark, sorry, Mark, to call on you. Should the VA hospital be any part of this? As to it's that it's located in Livermore.
So if anybody had strong opinions on that, you can let Jeff know. Jeff, also in the chat where there were comments about Keith Beck, was that about the National Peace Corps? Was that to incorporate that or to reach out to?
Okay.
And then Michael Ferrucci is let us not forget the Native Americans that were here before us.
Okay. Okay.
And then, Splen, you have a question about the flagpole.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. Hey, Jeff. I know you, and I'm sorry I missed the first part of your presentation, but I know you mentioned about the flagpole being the top part of the one that was, was weakened. What is the expected life of this pole? And the reason I'm asking is there a reason for maybe Rotary to consider a capital project to somehow, when it needs to build a fund to replace it, or to maybe replace it with something that isn't wood? That's what I'm curious about. What's the plan for the pole?
I don't have an answer to that. A very good question. And since we're renovating the park, I'm going to jot down, I think we should at least look at it if we're going to be doing a bunch of major construction. I am not familiar enough with the city as to when the flagpole was moved over here, if there is some sort of a real community bond to this pole or not. Someone else would have to help me on that.
And Jeff, my recollection is that the pole in its current form is actually a reinforced. In other words, it has a steel center now because of when it was not in shape and so I guess that's a question back to you, Jeff. Is that correct in my memory?
You know what? I am not sure, Mark, but I've jotted it down. I need to ask somebody about that. I wasn't aware of that. So I will definitely look into this.
If I could make a note about that, we do have as I say, we have a piece of it on display in the History Center. The steel section is because the pole was taken down in 4 pieces. Mm-hmm. The top 2 were rejoined, and you can see where the bolting is. I believe that steel support is really just kind of between the 2 pieces, creating that joint between them. And nominally, as long as it stays cared for, it's now over 100 years old. That's actually after it stopped being a tree, which was probably another few hundred. But there's no reason to think it wouldn't make another 100 or more. I think the condition, and obviously this needs to be evaluated by people who are competent at this, but the wood at that end looked very good, and it is an important piece of a monument from Livermore's history. So put up in 1905 and taken down in 2004, I think. So and then it was moved a couple of years after that, or it was replanted over here a couple of years after that.
All right, thanks for that background, Jeff Caskey. And then Tim Berry, you have a comment or a question.
Yes. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for all your work and your work on this plan. LARPD, of course, maintained Carnegie Park for many decades. And I notice as trees are diseased and need to come down, and several on the perimeter of the park have done that. I wonder if you're considering a variety of tree replacements so that you're creating sort of an arboretum setting in that park that would be very interesting to visitors, that could also have plaques that would explain the source of the tree and that type of thing.
One, good to see you, Tim. Hope you're enjoying retirement.
I love it.
You know what? There is a plan. Matter of fact, as part of the northwest quadrant, we'll be removing a bunch of the very diseased trees and replanting, and definitely tree restoration. But one thing I love also that you just said, and because it's an educational library property, you are correct. We should have signs saying this is a Sequoia XYZ, and that. So I think that's a great great ad.
Thanks, Jeff.
And then Jeff, I'm going to add to share that Lynn Sepla put in the comments was just about a visit he had to a facility in Boulder, and that I've seen this in a number of parks where there are apps. So some of the information can be provided via an app or a number to call. It doesn't all have to be, you can provide additional information because everybody has a cell phone in their hand these days.
A great comment, and I know we're running out of time, but I do want you to know the next quadrant after this is the northeast. You can see it in the background. That is going to be called the Carnegie kind of library, more of an interactive area. It's going to obviously have a bunch of library information, and that's where a bunch of what you just said, Joan said, could be definitely located in that area, because that area is to really reflect the history of Mr. Carnegie library education. It might have some small crawling structures for kids and stuff like that. So that is great info.
So thank you, Jeff, very much for your presentation, and thank you for allowing us to be a little kind of just being open to hearing everybody's suggestions and comments. We appreciate that and the input, and we look forward to continuing to work with the city and partner with the city on projects at Carnegie Park.
Thank you. And a small plug, remember Monday, 11 o'clock at Stockman's new park by the statue, VFW's doing a Memorial Day not dedication, but a ceremony and all that. Since we're talking about military, I'm sure they would want me to tell you. Hopefully everybody can come out and see that new activity around the statue.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeff. And that ends another meeting for the Rotary Club of Livermore. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And we will see you next week. And next week, it will be June. That will be my final month as president of the Rotary Club of Livermore. My first meeting in June, and then it's the home stretch. So hope to see you all next week. Bye, everybody.